That might be one to check out. I mean, the Golden Knights, we haven't talked enough about that. I guess it's because it's Tri-Cities sports now. It's not Las Vegas sports now. But what a story the Golden Knights have been. Right now, they're the most successful expansion franchise in history. At least first year. I mean, we can discuss, the Dallas Cowboys are an expansion franchise in 1960 for the NFL. I suppose we can argue that the Pittsburgh Steelers are an expansion franchise in 1933. If we want to go to those levels. But yet nobody's had this kind of success to start off with. Hey everybody, it's Marky Billson, your voice of choice for a new generation of Tri-City sports fans. The name of the program is Tri-City Sports Now on 1420 NBC Sports Radio Tri-Cities, which owns the Tri-Cities when it comes to sports talk as far as I'm concerned, because if you've seen this on our 1420 NBC Sports Radio Tri-Cities Facebook page, forget about this show, which, by the way, and I'm going to tell you about this here in a second, if there is one sports talk show that you can listen to from now until the end of time, this is the one to do it. I'm going to steal the old David Letterman line, okay? We've got a tremendous program for you today. However, if you've seen that the top two sports talk shows, national sports talk shows in the country, Dan Patrick, who you just heard listening to Al Michaels, the steak eater, good for him, and Colin Cowherd, top two sports talk shows, not in the country, we've got them both. Of course, Tri-City Sports Now with the hardest hitting opinions and the best guests. And I'd like to think that it's got more insights. And you're going to hear a little bit more about that here in just a second. Chuck Oliver, coming on from 5 to 7. This is SEC country. And frankly, nobody covers the SEC like Chuck Oliver. 1420 NBC Sports Radio Tri-Cities has the Braves now. We've taken them away from competitors. It's simply, this is really, when I say we own the Tri-Cities, we own the Tri-Cities. So remember that when your advertising dollars come in, and you can find out, you can ask David True down at Irwin Paint and Body what advertising on sportscasts do for this radio station. On today's program, in about a half hour, John Iamarino is going to join me. He's the commissioner of the Southern Conference. What's going on with the SoCon here? Of course, ETSU, a big 20-point winner against the Samford Bulldogs, who were projected by many to finish second in the conference at the start of the year. Well, now it's ETSU's conference to lose, and it doesn't look like they're going to do it. Started off with a big 20-point lead. Samford whittled it down to single digits, about a 4-point game at one point if memory serves. And then behind 31 points, Dishonor Bradford, fifth gear, take it home 96 to 76. Next game tomorrow against Chattanooga. Pardon me, boy, but I don't think that this rivalry is what it once was, and that's because of Chattanooga falling off the face of the planet. And that has hurt the RPI of the Southern Conference. If Chattanooga hadn't fallen off the face of the earth, and of course I've felt that the reason because they have, or because David Blackburn, their AD, was just, hiking his skirt to try to get the AD job at Tennessee, didn't work out, and it just seemed to be a dereliction of duties. After a while, you say, we're Chattanooga. We are a D1 program. I understand that, Tennessee is in the SEC and considered more glamorous. But then again, last year, the mocks here, our school beat Tennessee on the hardwood. Maybe you ought to be the AD at Chattanooga and tell everybody how great Chattanooga is as the athletic director here, instead of jumping up and down and saying, please hire me, UT. And of course, Blackburn isn't the AD, and the Mox programs have gone into disarray. Mocs, although they've improved a little bit, they may be the worst team in the SoCon. I think most people would say VMI, but right down there, it's Chattanooga this year. Whole new team. ETSU had 4 new starters. Chattanooga had 5. Look at the difference here. I know new coach, but just it starts at the top. Richard Sanders, Scott Carter maybe winning me over a little bit. And, just look at the direction. We're going to have on John Iamarino. We're going to talk to Paul Domowitch. He covers the Philadelphia Eagles for the Philadelphia Daily News. He'll also be voting on the Hall of Fame tomorrow. Now, how's that for a Pro Football Insight 2 days before the Super Bowl? I'm going to finish up the show with Mitchell Northam, writes for Mid-Major Madness. Great story. He just contributed on the highs and lows of East Tennessee State. And now their basketball team. And now I'm going to go and tell you who's going to win the Super Bowl. This is Marky's monologue. New England 26, Philly 22. Hey, it's a 4-point spread. I don't want you losing your money here. You know, I mean, over-under is 48. So there you go. That's, but I started the playoffs red hot. Right now we're ice cold. So anyway, but the pick here is New England because you're going to go broke betting against the Patriots in this era of modern football. And the pick is the Patriots because of one person. You know who it is. It's Tom Brady. Actually, maybe it's 2 people. Rob Gronkowski's coming back. He'll play in the game. And remember, when the Patriots didn't have Rob Gronkowski late in the year, they lost to the Miami Dolphins 27-20. The Dolphins! So the Patriots are beatable. Actually, I'm going to tell you something. The New England Patriots, I think they're going to win the Super Bowl. I don't think that they are that good of a team. Marky, they're 13-3. No, don't get me wrong. But after Brady, and sure, I like Dion Lewis, Brandon Crooms, Gronkowski, and all this, but let me just give you this. You know what team in the AFC had the worst pass defense in the entire AFC? I think it's kind of obvious the way I set this up. It's the New England Patriots. And although Nick Foles is not Tom Brady, who is Tom Brady? Nick Foles did light up a decent Minnesota team, and I am not giving the Vikings their proper due by merely calling them decent, but he lit them up, didn't he? He was an efficient game manager against the Falcons in 2 games in which the Eagles were underdogs. For that matter, he threw 4 touchdown passes against the New York Giants in his first start. Was that his first start, or did he come off the bench due to injury? Threw 4 passes against the New York Giants in his first extended play, let's say. And as I've mentioned many times on this show, Nick Foles, 5 years ago, 2013, I guess 4 seasons ago, we could say, had 27 touchdowns and 2 interceptions for the Eagles. I mean, this is not a poor QB. Problem is, in Super Bowl history, and we can go back to 57 and Tobin wrote, or the sneaker game or whatever with backup quarterbacks, if you want to go into those days, but just keeping into the Super Bowl era, there's only been one backup quarterback, that won the Super Bowl. Super Bowl 25, Jeff Hostetler. See 30 for 30 last night, Bills? The 2 Bills? That's kind of, you know. O.J. Anderson won that game, by the way. At a monster game. I think O.J. Anderson should be in the Hall of Fame. Maybe I'll talk about that with Paul Domowitch. That's, you know. But, yeah, the next section that I'm going to say, though, is that why take the Patriots, as I said, not the strongest team in the NFL, in my opinion, strongest quarterback. Now, Ray Lewis spoke up this week, doesn't he always? No, he's not saying that we're all on leashes or something, but he spoke to Ron Borges, who's also going to be voting in the Hall of Fame, and Borges covers the Patriots, right? He covers them for the Boston Herald. And also, Ron Borges is a tremendous football historian. Absolutely. You couldn't ask for a better guy to be voting on the Pro Football Hall of Fame than Ray Borges, by the way. But he sought out Ray Lewis. And remember, the Ravens with Lewis in this era have had success against the Patriots in the playoffs, playing them 3 times, beating them twice, losing only on a missed chip shot field goal at the end of one playoff game that would have put the Ravens and Pats into overtime. Remember that? That was about, what was that, 4 years ago? That was the Patriots-Seahawks Super Bowl. And it was Ravens and Pats, and yeah, we missed the field goal at the end. For that matter, I got to say that if against Denver, twice Bill Belichick decided I ought to go for it late in the fourth quarter instead of kicking a field goal. And if he kicks a field goal, the Patriots might go to the Super Bowl that year. Peyton Manning's last year. Think about that. I guess you have to make the field goal, but nevertheless, they weren't making fourth down, nor the 2-point conversion to tie. But anyway, let's look at that. Ray Lewis had some very interesting points on how to beat Tom Brady. And I want to get into this in this monologue here to begin the show. And what he said is that Brady is the lead. He's got more freedom on the field than any other QB in the league. In other words, Brady, Peyton Manning did this a lot, but the plays don't necessarily come from the sideline with Brady. Watch out, Colts, when you hire Josh McDaniel. Maybe now we understand why the Belichick assistants, especially on offense, don't necessarily succeed when they get their own head coaching ability. Are they calling the play? Well, not so much as Brady. Brady is really a field general. And this is what Lewis says, and that they studied the tendencies, and they realized, don't look for the play the Ravens did back when they were beating the Pats in the playoffs. Don't look for the play coming from the sideline. Consider what Brady is going to do with an audible. Consider what Brady is going to call in the huddle. Now, this really does, in my mind, define Brady's greatness. If you want to make arguments, and I know it seems to be a little fuddy-duddy, but if you want to make arguments, the players in the old days are better than the ones that are there now. I mean, now they're bigger and stronger. We get that, But if you wanted to make an argument for past competition, and let's face it, I mean, Packers era, Steelers era, Niners era, all very special. But I would make the argument that I could say, okay, I'm going to take a Terry Bradshaw now because Bradshaw called his own plays. He won, obviously. That's another thing. I can't argue his stats, but I can argue called his own plays, won all the time, threw long. Who's better at a deep ball than he? Philadelphia Eagles are in the Super Bowl. The last time they won the NFL title was 1960. Their quarterback was Norm Van Brocklin. It's a while back, but Van Brocklin still has the record for most passing yards in a game with 552, set in 1951. Van Brocklin was said to be the coach on the field. Maybe Buddy Shaw, who was the Eagles coach in 1960, prepared them. But when it came to calling the plays, when it came to motivating the team on the field, it was all the quarterback. It was all Van Brocklin. That's one of the reasons why Van Brocklin, after winning the NFL title in 1960 as a quarterback, then went on to coach the Minnesota Vikings the next year as a relatively young man. And anyway, so there's your football history 101 today. But the idea, don't you see, is that, in the old days, the quarterbacks weren't robots taking the call from the sideline. They were calling their own plays. And there's something to be said for that. That's what Brady does more than anyone else in contemporary National Football League play. And this is what Lewis says. Lewis, and you heard this on Colin Cowherd. When you think about this, there's a reason why I picked the Jaguars to beat the Patriots. I mean, why would I pick a team on the road that won 3 fewer games? I'll tell you why. Number 1 pass defense in the league. Against the worst pass defense in the AFC, you do the math. But there's Tom Brady. Remember, Brady's down by 10 points in the fourth quarter. Brady doesn't have his top receiver, Rob Gronkowski. And yet Brady pulls off the victory against a team with the number 1 pass defense in the league. How does he do this? Well, Ray Lewis said that one of the reasons he couldn't believe is he saw the Jaguars slip into soft zones, almost playing prevent, like with a 10-point lead. Okay. Final quarter. And he said, what are they doing? Why aren't they blitzing? What's the number 1 way to stop the passing game? It's through the pass rush. Jacksonville had the opportunity, he says, when Gronk went down to blitz the New England Patriots. I don't know why the Jags never blitzed the New England Patriots. You can't beat New England unless you get to the head. In other words, in Tom Brady's head. That's what Ray Lewis thinks he did in those 2 playoff victories in the 3 games. I can tell you how I think this game's going to go. And I can also tell you then why I think the Patriots win. It's Brady. And the fact of the matter is I'm not so sure about the Eagles' pass rush. The Eagles this year, a rather mediocre total of 36 sacks on the season. Player to watch in this game, defensive end Brandon Graham. You guys would like him from the Tri-Cities. He's from Crockett Ridge High School. Of course, that's in Detroit. But Brandon Graham led the Eagles in sacks this year with 9.5. Not a bad number. Not going to lead the league, but a legitimate, more than 1 every 2 games. Okay, Jadeveon Clowney had 9.5 sacks this year. Okay, so, Brandon Graham, out of Michigan. It's his career high in sacks, but here's something. He does not have any sacks in the postseason, despite the Eagles' success, especially defensively. They've only allowed 17 points. It seems to me you got to get to Brady, you got to blitz him, you got to disrupt him. And if the Eagles don't do that, and their top pass rusher doesn't have a sack in 2 playoff games, how are they going to stop Tom Brady? Oh, I think the Eagles will take an early lead. I think they'll be able to go up a 14-0 or something like that. I think that the Patriots won't be able to run the ball. Pats have the worst pass defense in the AFC. You know who's the best run defense in the NFL? The Eagles. Less than 80 yards allowed on the ground this year per game. Think about that. The Patriots, first they had to play the number 1 pass defense. Now they got to play the number 1 run defense. But the Eagles don't necessarily rush the passer that well. As I said, can't you see the Eagles going up by a couple of touchdowns and then Brady leading the Eagles back much the same way he did against the Jaguars, or for that matter the Falcons, in last year's Super Bowl? Can't you see the soft coverage of the Eagles? Can't you see the Eagles with their strong running game, LeGarrette Blount, trying to run out the clock, and then giving the ball to Brady, say on the 20, fourth quarter, down 22-19, and then Brady comes up with a game-winning touchdown drive. That's the way I think that this is going to go. So I'm taking the Patriots 26-22. Brandon Graham, defensive end. That's the player to watch on both teams. Philadelphia Eagles defensive end. If he has a big day, the Eagles can win. Otherwise, I think we're going to see another Brady comeback. And the idea here now is, as I said, Brady, so much in control of the offense, so much old school, so much calling the plays, doing so well. A throwback quarterback, best team athlete of all time, debatable. I keep hearing people say, it's got to be between MJ and Tom Brady. A lot of guys I'd put in there. Wayne Gretzky, Babe Ruth. We're saying all time. Come on here. Why doesn't Wilt Chamberlain, with his 48.5 minutes per game and 50-point scoring average in the early 60s, merit more as a great team athlete? Those are incredible statistics. For that matter, Otto Graham, every season he played for the Cleveland Browns, led his team to a league championship game. Of course, there are fewer teams in those days, and I could make the argument there really fast that, going to the title game in that era would be akin to going to a conference championship today due to the number of teams. In fact, there are more teams in a conference today than there were in the entire NFL back in those days. But nevertheless, I still think it's impressive. I think the greatest team athlete, if we're going to say a football player, it's got to be a quarterback. Possibly a running back, but I think it's got to be a quarterback. Tom Brady's up there. He wins his 6th Super Bowl. Yeah, it's going to be very... Who else are you going to choose as the all-time QB? Tri-City Sports Now coming back after this. Remember, John Iamarino at 12:30.
Loss or muffled or blurred hearing.